This episode was taken from a recent talk I held. I hope you get some value from this talk. I would love to hear your thoughts. The biggest question every entrepreneur, landlord, and guru wants to know is this: how are landlords and entrepreneurs like us increasing our rent up to £42,155 a year above the market rent from a single property? Now that replaces the average salary, whether we're the owner of the property or we're just the tenant. You're listening to Ryan OTTO, and this podcast will give you all the answers. Welcome to the Perfect Property Deal. In this training, we're going to start with belief, okay? Very important. So we're going to start with belief before we get into the formula for achieving at least 8+ out of 10 reviews, okay? The customers, they're paying £205 a night to stay at any one of our properties that we shared with you guys earlier. That's our average room rate. Now these customers, obviously they expect the property or your properties to be presented in at least a 4-star standard, or even better if you can, okay? If you can imagine you're charging a premium, that's where we're going to position you guys, or help to position you guys. So you're charging a premium to generate those life-changing amounts of money. So you obviously have to present the properties to at least a 4-star standards, okay? To achieve the ceiling rates, obviously the clients, the guests, the travelers, they want a certain standard, higher standards, okay? So if you think about it for a moment, what would you get from a similar priced 4-star hotel in the same area or the same city, okay? Now that will give you all a very, very good idea of what to include and how to present the property to meet your new customers, the new guests' expectations, okay? Now, there's some very, very simple but very, very effective ways to ensure that every customer experience is as good as it can be every single time, okay? Now, what we have found is that there's a few particular areas that customers will pay the most attention to, right? So, over and above the general duties that your housekeeper or housekeepers will do when they prepare the properties just like a hotel room, okay? The same in, same out, day in, day out. Now we provide additional attention to these simple but very specific things. Now this really does ensure that the customers, your customers guys, will have the best experience every single time they come to stay with you, because ultimately the only reason why we're doing this is to get the higher review score. When you have the higher review score, it leads to more bookings. When you have more bookings, it leads to more revenue. And when you have more revenue, it leads to more profit. That's why we're doing this, okay, guys? You could just have an average flat or an average holiday home or vacation home, whatever you'd like to call it. However, that's absolutely fine. But if you do want to generate the life-changing amounts where one of these properties set up in the right way, as we're teaching you guys, can outperform 3, 4, or even 5 of the average or run-of-the-mill short-let properties. Okay, guys? That's the difference. That's what we're here for. That's why we're doing this. And that's why you guys are here. So in this session, we're going to go through how to present the property in a lot more detail, okay, guys? So We're going to share some tips to keep that review score as high as physically possible for you guys, right? We want to get you up into the 9s, the 9 pluses. But obviously if you're 8 plus, that's high end. When you get into the 9, naturally, which you will have seen in some of the other training earlier, the property will appear in more searches because guests, travelers, your clients, they can tick that box, which is search by review score. And naturally what happens is the lower performing properties or the lower review score with the bad reviews, negative reviews, okay, they will go to the bottom of the search, just like when you're on Auto Trader and you're looking for that brand new Mercedes SLS, okay, with the gold wing doors. Fantastic, love those doors. And if you search by price, for argument's sake, the most expensive price is at the top, and then the cheapest price, which you can sort by, comes at the bottom. It's exactly the same on Booking.com. So your goal is to position yourself as high as physically possible in the review score, because what will happen is, as soon as you're into the 9s, as soon as you're into the 9 bracket, your property will appear in more searches. Again, the closer you are to the 10 is, well, it can't get any better than that, which means you'll be on the first page alone by being in the 9s, but it means that you won't just be on the first page, you will be the first listing, 10 out of 10, 9.9 out of 10, 9.8 out of 10. And it all depends on how the others in your area are performing, based on have they even got a higher review score than you for them to obviously appear above yourself. If you think of it like Google pay-per-click or Google SEO, okay? Actually, let's go back to pay-per-click first. So you're paying for the position, okay, where you appear on the right-hand side or at the top in Google. So it's great that you're on the first page. However, you get more exposure, more people click that link, more people go through to land on whatever page you're redirecting them to. We're still talking about pay-per-click here, guys. When you're on position 1 or position 2 or position 3 on that first page. Position 4, 5, 6 will get a certain amount of views after the people have gone down 1, 2, and 3. The same as 7, 8, 9, and 10 will be further down the list. They will naturally get whatever is left, okay? So if you want to get the most amount of bookings, the maximum amount of views, the most amount of stays, the maximum amount of revenue, which is the most profit possible, you need to be obviously aiming for the 9 plus reviews, guys, okay? So in order to do this, we're being measured by the experience from the guest, okay? So if you think of it like this, all you need to do is stay one step ahead of the guests, okay, during their stay. Even if they call you, once they've made the booking and you have to explain something to them that you've, like a question they've asked, but you've already answered it somewhere else or in a previous email, okay? Earlier in the training, guys, we would have shared the frequently asked questions and why it's important to compile that list or use our list, model the template we have, copy it if you want to, maybe personalize it so it works better for yourself, send that to guests. What I mean by that is, if you've compiled the list of all of the frequently asked questions that we shared with you guys in the earlier training, even if you've sent that first, you've sent that with the welcome email, okay? Let's assume you obviously followed exactly what we said and you've compiled that list and you sent it straight away when the guest booked, or you sent it immediately once they asked their first question, maybe not even related to that, okay? So now the guest has already had the answer to probably 99.9% of every single question they would ask, based on the template we've shared with you guys to download, or you've already downloaded in this training so far, okay? So let's assume they ask a question, you've already answered it before, and then you just refer to them and say, of course, we'll answer the question. However, we have already sent you something which answers that question because, thinking ahead, thinking of you guys, we wanted to make sure you have the best experience possible. So we've already covered that, okay? Now that's just as good enough, which just means, the guest hasn't read that email that you've already sent them. This is another very, very important step to keeping the guest complaints a negative score. Well, keeping the guest complaints down, keeping you away from any negative score, and keeping their experience as high as possible. My friend, if you're not already using arbitrage, what I mean by that is taking a rental property you don't have to be the owner of out of the AST rental market and putting it on Booking.com. You stand to lose out on the largest transfer of wealth that's happening right now in 2019 because every £1,000 of AST rent is now worth up to £3,000 of rent on Booking.com. If you're not focusing all of your attention on Booking.com right now, you stand to lose. Now you have a massive advantage over the other 2.5 million landlords that are also looking for these secrets. Don't waste that advantage by doing nothing after listening to this talk today. You can join our communities on social media called Ask Ryan OTTO to discuss these episodes and have your questions answered on the next show. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Snapchat. I would love to hear from you and know what you liked about this talk.